Toddle office hours. Round of applause. I still need that button. How are we doing? Let me know in the chat. I have been very busy working on a new talk that I'll be touring this year. Andreas made me do it, but it's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun. It's going to be a good one. Hi, Brian. Welcome in. Hello, Sab. Hello, NoCodeProCode. Today, we are going to be, first of all, joined by Jacob, toddle engineer, very, very clever engineer. A lot of people say that. You can't not say that about Jacob, who's going to be showing us some tips and tricks for toddle power users, all of the really down to the wire stuff that you can do in Toddle to really improve your projects and your workflows. Then we're going to be joined by none other than NoCodeProCode, who will be showcasing his app Despia. Then I'm going to show you about 2 CSS properties I recently learned about that enable you to create some really fancy text headers. I have a Toddle project to show that off as well. It's really cool. And then we'll be taking Q&A as usual. Welcome in, Jonathan. Made it to the start for the first time. Excellent news. All right, so first of all, I'm going to welcome Jacob to the stage. There you are. Everyone always gets to it before me. Welcome in, Jacob. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you.
Very, very good. Very good. And let's start. What have you got to show us today? I might interject with questions because I probably know nothing about this.
Yeah, so we talked about what I could talk about, and I couldn't really come up with anything too exciting new things because everything is a little bit of a secret these days. And we have a lot of things to show very soon. So I thought I could just show some random tips and tricks, some things we use a lot in Toddle, but sometimes I guess we haven't talked enough about it, so not everyone knows about these things. Then I came up with a bunch of suggestions, and you said, that sounds great. But maybe you should focus on a few things. So I thought I would focus today on workflows and how we use those, and some more advanced patterns around workflows. Maybe I can share my screen, and then maybe another time I get to talk about other things. Who knows?
Yeah, you've got a lot of content planned for the next 5 office hours. So let's go.
Share this entire screen. Okay. So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. So I prepared a little thing here. I don't know if anyone knows about this, but there's something called cookie clicker. I thought this would be a fun way to look into workflows. So I set up this small project here, as I probably would do myself, pretty rough first version, and then we can try to improve it a little bit and make it more clear, more maintainable. And that's where workflows usually come in. So workflows are these reusable pieces of actions. So in this case, there are a few interactions we can do. There's like clicking. I can just try it here. If I click this one, someone created a package called confetti with emojis. So I used that one. That was like a one-click thing. That's pretty cool. So there's every time I click this one, I get a cookie. And on top of that, I can buy these different things. I can buy a baker and I can buy factories. And if you can extend this with 100 more things. There are a few issues here with this version set up. For example, I can add here and I can buy these bakeries. If I buy a factory, you can see it subtract 100 and I get a factory, and now I get more cookies per second. If I do it again, I actually go minus. This should not be possible. So something is obviously wrong here. And that's completely normal. Maybe we all make mistakes. The problem is the way I set this up on these buttons is that I set up an event. And this event I kind of actually, I did well here because I used workflow. Normally, I would not have used workflow. I would just have done it here directly. I would have done basically what's inside of this workflow. So I would have added a factory and have subtracted the thing. If I then later find out, oh, there's a bug, I have to fix it for single thing here again and again and again. Or maybe I want to change the logic a bit. That's where workflows really come in, because now both of these ones use the same workflow. They call into the same one. So if I want to do some kind of check here, for example, I want to make sure you cannot buy these things unless you have enough cookies. So it's very easy. I can add a switch, and then in that switch, I will ask, is the cost less than or equal to the amount of cookies that we have. And if it is, then I can buy it, and if not, then I cannot buy it. So I'll just paste this in here. And we say, here we say has cookies, has enough cookies. So now if we go back and I try to buy a bunch of factories, it should stop when okay, it did not. I did something wrong, obviously. Add reducer, so if it has cookies. I'm not sure what's wrong. I will go in test mode quickly, and I will test. Okay, here it works. I don't know why. So here I cannot, if I get 25, I can then buy a baker, but I cannot do it again until I have enough. And you probably would grade these out as well if you don't have enough. So that's a nice way to use workflows, but there's some pretty interesting other ways we can go way further. For example, you can use workflows recursively. So right now it works, have this, when you load it, every second, every 1000 milliseconds, we add to the amount of cookies we have, we add all these producers, we have these factories and bakers, we add them together, and each second we add it up. And the annoying thing is that, I don't know, I have a lot of things here, it's not, doesn't seem that cool, it's just every second I get the same. So what we could do is we could make it, do it in a faster way. So instead of every second, we want to do it as soon as they come in, kind of. So I've prepared a little bit here. I set up this thing called main loop. For anyone who's into game development, they might recognize something like it. The idea is that this workflow called main loop, it has requested mission. That means it waits until the next frame of the browser, and then it calls itself. And it calls this other thing called step. And the thing is, if it calls itself, it can send the time in that it had before and the new time. And based on those one, we get a time step, so how long has passed in between. And you can send that to this step function. And in this step function, we can then do the same thing as before. The only difference is we multiply by the time. So if that's only happened like a fraction of a second, we only add part of the cookies. So if I just change my unload, instead of using this interval, I call the main loop and I call it with now. So we just get and then I can move this one. If we then load again, we can see we get it continuously. So instead of every second, we get it all the time. And this is recursive. It's not really recursive. It's just a workflow calling itself, which is, we usually call that recursive. So this works really well. And again, we're not going to get into formulas today, but we should probably have put our count inside a formula called cookies. And then that one could have taken the count and it could have rounded it down, I guess, because that's what we want to show. And then in here, we can show the cookies here as well. So now we actually get the rounded number, and we can use this everywhere. So we don't have to, again, if you want to use this number somewhere else, now we have it as a formula. And it's the same idea with workflows. It's reusable pieces of logic. That's the whole idea. There's actually a little bonus tip here that I would like to show. If you have used this concatenate, it's great for text. It's to concatenate text and objects. The annoying thing is you can see if I try to mark this text, it kind of disappears. So this is a sign that maybe more than needs to be is updating. So a little extra tip for those who's watching. You should put multiple text nodes instead of using concatenate if you can. Because this will, if I just change this to instead say cookies, if we do it like this, then the browser actually doesn't have to update this part, it only updates this part over here. It's a little bonus tip, but it's a performance thing. Now it's less work for the browser. I'll get into all these things another time, I guess.
Are you familiar with the phrase, draw the rest of the owl, Jacob?
No. No, yes, sure.
It's like you've just shown us some wizardry very, very quickly. I'm going to have to put you on 0.5 speed when the video is on YouTube. But that was a hot tip, actually, about the re-rendering. I like that tip very much.
Yeah,
it's the hottest tip.
It's something when you know how toddle and actually all frameworks work, it is important to make sure you only update the smallest part that needs to be. This is basically no cost at all to update it. But I think this part where you can actually mark it is nice. I think even like YouTube, if you watch the counter, they update the entire text, which is like weird if you're trying to copy it. So I mean, it's definitely a pro tip, I guess. I don't have too much more for workflows, but I just want to show another case of recursive workflow, because in this case it is kind of recursive, but it has a delay. So it's more like a loop, a main loop than a recursive thing. I have this other thing here that we've been working on for toddle. We want to maybe one day, who knows, create different kind of easing functions. So this is when you create, like, I want to transition this property to another property. Today we have the cubic Bezier curves, where you can kind of decide what it is, but you're kind of limited. CSS recently gave us the ability to create these linear easing curves, which means that you can define kind of point by point how something moves. So you can create something like this you see here, like a ball dropping. This is just the CSS transition. And the way we generate this curve here is by calling a workflow over and over again. So we actually called it 4,000 times. It's very fast. It's a very simple calculation, but you cannot really do this in pure math. You need to run some kind of simulation. So the way it works is that these functions go into a workflow that then returns a new value of the position plus velocity. So basically each time this one goes, it changes, it calls this again with the same values, except the top two will be slightly different. So this might be 0.9, and now it has a little bit of velocity. And if you do that enough times, you kind of get this, you just need to handle the bounce as well. Then you get this very cool kind of transition. You can then save it into these linear transitions. And you can see it only draws 89 of 4,000. So it calculates very, 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 very small time steps to really get a nice curve. And then afterwards, because you don't want this one to be 4,000 long, you can see if I add more precision, it gets really long. So the idea is you just cut it down after. So you calculated very high precision using this workflow. It's super fast. Computers are fast these days. And then afterwards, you simplify the curve. So it's another example of like recursive, especially in simulation, you use recursive a lot. So I don't know how much more time I have, if I should go through more things, but
you have
I just
2
want to show
minutes.
this. 2 minutes.
Can you make that cookie bounce in that using that linear easing function?
Oh, let's see. We can use this one. I think actually when you click it, it goes like this, right? So it has a transition. So let's go in and see. We have a button. Just refresh because I think this cookie is going a bit crazy. We have this one, styling. So when it's active, it gets this change. So let's go to the. I don't think we support the linear ones. I have to just paste it in directly. Transition timing function, cubic Bezier. We change this to this linear one now. I don't guarantee this will work, but let's go check it out.
You know me, I like to make things difficult.
I don't see it changing. Transition all. I don't really see it working. Maybe we need to give it more time. Let's give it a longer. I see it working. A bit surprised actually.
It's definitely doing something.
Why is it not working? It's just going longer, right? But it's not really. It has easier. We shouldn't do that. This is a transition timing function. So we override it again. So I'll just move this. Let's see now. Still not. Okay. I will paste this in my 2 minutes remaining, because I think these things are overriding each other. So I'll just paste it in here. The third argument. Okay, now you can see. I don't know if this resolution is good enough, but I'm pressing it and it goes like bonk, 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 bonk. And we can could change it to be a lot bigger, so we could say it should be bouncing way more.
That's a cool cookie.
Let's drag. So now it should bounce a bunch. Take this and I'll paste it in my last 30 seconds here. Oish, it's very long. I think we will make some very nice tooling around this if we ever get it in to make it. Oish, it's really bouncing now.
It's really bouncing.
Really bouncing. Yes. Maybe to make it more obvious, I will just here and oish. Oish, it's really moving.
There it goes.
It's really moving. And it should probably have a little more time to do it. Okay. Fine. Okay, so now it's definitely...
Pulsating. Oh, it's going.
Yes.
It's going down. It's going down the
It's
hole.
going down.
It's disappearing.
So these are some examples of what you can achieve with like recursive workflows and recursive formulas as well. You can also use formulas and call themselves. That's a bit more tricky, but you can definitely do that as well.
Brilliant. If you have had the need for a recursive workflow, a workflow calling itself, let us know in the chat or post in the Discord somewhere, because I want to know how to draw the rest of the owl. Thank you so much, Jacob.
Yes,
Jacob
and
will be
it's not
back.
only about recursive workflows. It's just about use workflows in general if you can. It's really useful. The next person who comes in have to fix that thing and they have to do 30 times because there's no workflows and they just copy paste. Will be very, very happy that it's set up as workflow. And that person is most likely yourself. So
Yeah,
always a good idea.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll see Jacob again soon on another edition of Office Hours. Have a great day, Jacob. Thank you so much. And now I am going to invite NoCodeProCode to come and tell us about Despia. Welcome in, NoCodeProCode. You are muted.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Come on in and tell us all about Despia.
Oh yeah, I'm going to add some fancy animations and recursive workflows now and there, now that I saw that. But yeah, Despia lets you build mobile applications in Toddle. But that's not even the coolest part. The coolest part is it's fully built in Toddle. So like Toddle is made in Toddle. And then Despia is made in Toddle, which lets you build your Toddle applications that are made in Toddle using a tool made in Toddle into a mobile application built in Toddle, right? So it's lots of
A recursive workflow.
There you go. There you go. And maybe you can make a mobile application to vibe code your Toddle app from your phone, and then it continues on. Who knows?
It continues. So show us around. Tell
Yes.
us what
How do
it
I
does.
share my screen inside? Oh yeah, there you go. Share
There's a big
screen.
button.
Make a selection. Entire screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
There you go. So this is the Despia project in the Toddle editor. Got lots of elements. So I always got to expand that here. I'm working on using more components. I apologize for anybody seeing that. You see, I'm using some components here, right? Components. But the whole thing is built inside of Toddle. And I couldn't imagine any better framework to manage all that because there's lots of complexity, because there are lots of elements, right? There are lots of things that need to have a little, editing widget themselves to configure things like the app icon, like the splash screen, all that kind of stuff, the color picker, right? So there are lots of things that, that require, complex UIs, but they still need to be easily manageable, right? And, componentized and all that kind of stuff. And Toddle really helps us and helps me in maintaining the product, updating things, and, keeping everything nice and updated. And then, I can also isolate things like the new one-click deployment panel we're working on, right? And just building those with the help of components, which makes it very easy to manage the whole project. And we got lots of components. And I got a little thing. I would love to have that fancy animation feature because I did this with lots of height calculations and style variables, but I think it looks nice. So Toddle gives me, full control to design everything inside of here visually, manage complex logic, and it just works wonderfully. And then of course you can, use the editor to build your mobile application. And the feature that I've been working on here is automated key store management. Because if you build an Android mobile application, right, you need to have a key store file. And if you lose that key store file, you will never be able to update your Android mobile application. So what I built in Toddle and also with Google Cloud Run on the backend is a little tool where you can click on generate and it'll generate the Google Key Store 100% automated for you. You won't have to use Android Studio. You won't have to use anything. It just happens directly in the browser. And as you can see, I got my key store. I can also export the key store and then open that in Android Studio if I want to, if I ever need to open a key store. And that's kind of like the password of your application. And it just does all of that for you fully automatic. And then you can just one click and you can publish the whole application with one click to Google Cloud Console once you already have, your application connected with your development team. So you can then just distribute that application that you built inside of Toddle to the App Store for Apple or to the Play Store for Google in one click. And I built that feature inside of Toddle, and I built the whole application inside of Toddle. And also the landing page is built on Toddle. A lot of people always say, yeah, you should use Webflow for your landing page. Actually, where's the landing page? There you go. But I have to say, I couldn't imagine a better tool even to build a landing page than Toddle. And I know I got to remove that. It's just I have a branching issue where I don't want to make an update before I publish the new branch where I'm doing all those changes. But the whole landing page is also made in Toddle. And it's just an amazing tool. I've been using, custom code before. And the streamlined workflow in using Toddle to just build the landing page, build the application, build complex components. I couldn't imagine anything better, I have to say. And I've tried basically every tool out there. I used Webflow, I tried WeWeb, I tried React, I tried some of those AI code editors. And I have to say Toddle is the whole deal. And that's why I believe in Toddle. And I think it's the best way how you can build a web application, now also a mobile application.
I have a question. I used to work on iOS apps. And Android apps, mobile apps, and the release process to the store. I mean, granted, this was like in 2018, 2019. The release process to the stores was horrendous. The CI/CD issues we had with signing your deployments and things like that. Clearly, has it got better? Like, how do you do that in just one click from Despia?
It's still something that's very complex, but it took us a year to make sure that you can do it in one click. So we've been working a year, and we're like a team of 3 people. So we've been working a year on building the CI/CD pipeline that is fully available for you. We run it on CodeMagic as well. We use on our backend, but we have the whole GitHub system in place, and you won't have to worry about GitHub. You won't even need to know what GitHub is. We'll take care of all of that for you. So you'll be able to just do a click, and then we'll spin up a virtual M2. As you can see here, it's running it on an M2, and it actually builds your whole application, signs it with your developer account, and then automatically sends it into the App Store in draft mode, meaning test flight, or in Android in draft mode called internal testing. And then from there, you'll be able to just one click, move it from your testing bucket to your distribution bucket. The only thing you have to do is upload your screenshots and all that kinds of things. Also, the nice thing about Despia is it makes sure that you're meeting minimum functionality requirements, because there are things out there like PWA Builder or other wrappers that you can do things, and you can do things easily, or you can do things with AI, but you won't get it on the App Store. Apple will not approve it because it is just kind of like just an iframe, just without being an iframe. But with Despia, you actually get access to real native functionalities that you can add through Toddle, and I can show you a little example if you want to take a look.
Yes, I'd love to know how you got this native functionality working.
Yes. So the magic to this is Toddle's package system. So if I can take a look here at the Despia package, and there's a little README because we did change, we did update the in-app purchase SDK. So it's now using the new version of StoreKit. We'll automatically take care of that for you. So you won't have to worry about updating dependencies in Swift and all that kind of stuff, because things always change. But you need to install that package, which I already have. Also make sure to start the package, very important to make it work even better. And what you want to do, let's say I click on this button here, and right now I can just open the application. I already got it deployed. And if I click on this button, nothing happens, right? So let's just actually close that here. And now I want to add native functionality. So I can go on click. On click, let's do biometric verification, right? So I can do Face ID. And then on success, I want to run confetti, right? And now I'm having this this is a native SDK. This is biometric verification, and I'm just adding it into my toddle mobile application using a toddle action. So I'm working within the interface that I already know. I don't have to export the code and put it into native script or whatever, or capacitor. I can just do this functionality directly from the toddle editor, and then I can preview it instantly. So now when I go and open the application here, oh, I added Face ID to the application. So now I have 2 times Face ID. If I click on this button, it's going to, I don't know if you can see it because I'm sharing my screen. It's asking for a password. Do you see that? Do you see
Yes.
it? Okay.
Yes.
So because I'm sharing my screen, it wouldn't show the Face ID dialog because I can't share my screen on Discord, but it's asking for Face ID. That's why it says, put in your password for your computer, and I can log in. And then as you can see, I should be getting the confetti. Why is it not working? Shit, it worked yesterday. Ooh, I did the confetti. Ooh. Let's try that again. There you go. Let's exit that one. Let's try logging in. Maybe it's because I'm sharing my screen, but it shouldn't. Let's try that. Okay, now I got confetti. There you go. Now it's working. There you go. I can just... And I get confetti whenever I verify locally my Face ID.
So I want to go deeper, right? So your Despia actions, all of that, the package is that's how an end user would add that native functionality to their mobile app. But what powers the Despia package? Because this is on the web, right? This is like, it's on the web, but it's for native mobile.
What it does, so the Despia package uses URL schemes, kind of like a deep linking approach to communicate with the native device functionalities. We're actually adding flashlight support, which is quite fun. So you'll be able to make a flashlight application in Toddle if you want to. Like Andreas told me, I need to build more silly applications, more useless apps. I was like, how about we make a flashlight app, right, in Toddle? So how it works is you would call a deep linking scheme, and it is something like flashlight on : / flashlight on, something like this, right? And when you run this as a redirect, it's going to then trigger the native functionality to turn on the flashlight. And then we have something like flashlight off to trigger the native functionality to turn the flashlight off. The way we do it is we'll create an object in the web view window that is the Despia object. So it will be window.despia. And if you just set it to be flashlight off or flashlight on, as an example, it will then call that native functionality. And that is what the Toddle package is running. So you are rendering your Toddle application using an enhanced version of a WK web view, but it uses this Despia object that is attached in the web view to then communicate with all the native functionalities. And we're adding lots of native functionalities. I think we already have 25 native SDKs for iOS and Android, but we're adding more. We're adding native OAuth, so you can have native login with Google. We're adding the widget API, so you can do smart widgets. I don't know if you know those widgets you can have on your mobile application, right? You can build those widgets and then just add them through your Toddle application in just like one line of code. And we'll be also adding clipboard API access. You can use Navigator Clipboard, but we'll actually give you access to the real native clipboard API. Same with Flashlight. We're adding deep linking for Android, a share dialog receiver, and some more enhancements. Like you can, for example, if you go to a website, let's say you go to the Toddle website and you click on share, you can share things on WhatsApp, you can share things on, Discord. Now you'll be able to share things inside of your Toddle mobile application that you compiled using Despia. So you can build like a little chat application or something. We'll also be working on a native video player. So we'll be actually now bringing Swift components inside of your Toddle web application, inside of your Toddle mobile application, using hybrid rendering. So you can improve the video playback performance by bringing in a native video player using a Toddle web component. And then we'll have some other things like Apple Wallet functionalities. You can, add Apple Wallet cards from your Toddle application using a custom action that we'll be adding to your application so they can use it to unlock doors and all that kind of stuff. We'll be also adding app clip functionality. So if you have your full mobile application, you'll be able to turn a feature into an app clip, and you can build that app clip fully in Toddle. We'll be making a package for that. So you can kind of like, have this instant app experiences in there. And then for Leonard, we'll be adding screenshot and screen recording prevention. And you can also run a trigger that will tell you this person tried to make a screenshot. So you can, if you build a chat application, someone tries to screenshot it, they can get a message. This person tried to screenshot your messages, just FYI. So you can build very cool things.
Interesting question I have for you, and I think I know your answer. So when I was in the mobile app development sphere, one of the biggest kind of discussions was web views versus real native apps. And there's a lot of people that feel that web views are lazy compared to building native apps because they're just a web view, and you don't obviously get a lot of the native functionality that Despia is providing in a web view. It's just a website.
Yes.
I know you probably know your thoughts, but like, where is the balance that we can strike with that? And are web views now in 2025 actually better than they were 7 years ago when I was doing it, and are they now more valid than maybe they were?
The big shift, especially for iOS development, was when we moved from UI WebView to WK WebView. That added a significant performance increase, 70% performance increase to how web views function. If you are, for example, going to your web application in Safari, right? Despia already, because of hardware acceleration, has more memory available than your web application open in Safari. So if your web application works well in Safari, it'll work even better in Despia. That's the nice thing, because you have that separated space. For example, if you run it in Safari, your web application, on a mobile device, you're going to share memory with the Safari application itself. And then if you take a look and open that in Despia, in your own application, you have your own memory area, kind of like. So you're going to have more resources available. But for things where you start feeling, okay, there are some limitations to this functionality, even though we have all the native functionalities, right? Or we will have all of them by end of the year, but we already have all of them that you actually need, right? Because not everyone needs the flashlight. But we'll be adding all the goofy stuff to it. No worries. So you can build all useless applications, and Andreas can use and build all the kind. He can build his, his band app, right? And all that kind of stuff. And we'll be adding some cool iCloud features. But, there are some things when you work with videos, when you build something like Netflix, like TikTok, where it can get, you can feel, if you don't set it up properly, that there are some limitations when it comes to memory resources. That's actually what HSL is solving. If you take a look, for example, in the capacitor community, they're all using HSL video players, because if you compare HLS or HSL, I forgot how the letters have to be put. I think it's HLS. HLS, which is kind of like this chunk-based video streaming, which Bunny CDN offers you, right? How you encode the videos, you're not going to feel any performance issues, and you can build something like TikTok in it. But if you're going to have like 5-hour videos in your applications, that's why we will be adding this feature with with hybrid rendering, where you can actually bring the native video player in there. So you got your web view here, and then think of, the native video editor injected in your application, the native video player, which will then have no performance issues when it comes to the video playback using AC Player, which is native to iOS.
It is all very, very impressive. I'm very impressed by Despia, and I'm, I think, curious to know even more about what goes on under the hood. I think we could do quite a few sessions on this, just looking at very tiny things. I like to go into the details. But thank you so much for showing us.
It was all built in Toddle. I couldn't have done it. We couldn't have done it if it wouldn't be for Toddle. So I'm very thankful that Toddle is out there, because it has allowed us to realize the idea, because we got the back end done before we had the front end done. And that was like the core of the business logic. But if you build this visual app builder, the front end is as important as the back end, even though the back end is always more important, if that makes sense, right? And we've tried all kinds of ways how to set up the front end. They were just too complicated to maintain. And I do think if it wouldn't have been for Toddle, Despia wouldn't be out there. I 100% believe that. So I'm very thankful that Andreas and the whole team came up with Toddle, and it was available. And Vakas forcefully convinced me to give it a shot. So it just has been a great experience using Toddle, and I don't regret it at all. And that is what allows us to ship features so fast.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for showcasing, and we'll probably see you again very, very soon. And I would use Despia.
You gotta make
just
your
for this.
mobile application as well.
Yeah, I would use it just
I'll
for
give
the
you as
CI.
many licenses as you need.
Brilliant. All right. Well, let's do it. Let's talk. All right. We'll
Yeah.
see you soon. Bye.
Perfect.
Okay. Next, I mean, you don't even know the issues I've had with mobile app development, CI/CD. And if someone has solved that for me, then I am going to use that tool. So watch me now. I'm gonna release all the mobile apps. Right. I'm going to show you something really cool. Let me show you this. Oh, I got my screen going. This is, why is that so small? Is it small for you or is it fine? Because it looks small for me. Please tell me. It's small. My goodness. Let's stop that. Let's start it again. Why is Discord so hard? Why is it so hard? Share entire screen. There we go. Right, look at this. Look what I made. I just whipped this up in not very long. So I read a blog post from Front End Masters about layered text headers. I'll give you a little sneak peek of this. It's essentially talking about, so we have this WebKit text stroke, right? And that is, it's got the WebKit prefix, but it's actually baseline. And we know what that means now after last office hours. It's actually baseline across all browsers. There must be some legacy story behind that. Here we go. Yeah. But it can create some not so desirable results when you use a text stroke with some types of fonts. This thing here particularly, it will create some kind of weird. I set up a thing to zoom in on pages, but I can't remember what that is now. Anyway, it can create some weird results. But if you use another CSS property called paint order to decide to tell the browser which order to paint the stroke around the characters and then fill it, you can get some better results like this. So I was going to show you it in Toddle. First of all, here's paint order on MDN. The normal is what it does first, which is the default, and it paints the which one does it paint first? I can't remember. I don't. Maybe it doesn't. Anyway, you can draw the stroke or the fill or the markers, and you can decide what to do. Oh, here we go. The default paint order is fill, stroke, markers first. So it will go fill and then stroke and then markers. And I don't quite know what markers are. But that's paint order. It's not new. And then another one I found, which I'll show you, is block size. And I only discovered this when I was trying to create something really silly and fancy. And so I thought, oh, maybe block size is just specifying the size of what the text will fit in. And so if I change block size here, then the text will also conform to that block size. But that's not what happens. What happens is the kind of like the block behind the text changes size. So if I change that to 50 pixels, I got to go a bit lower with that text. If I change it to 10, you'll see there's just a bit of it's filling the block size behind the actual text and the space that the text is taking up. So that's what this is here. This is me setting my block size to a smaller size than the actual width of the text. And this is me using that paint order stroke fill. So I'll show you it in Toddle. Here it is. Let's just view this in the editor. I think I want to redesign my whole website around just this now because I'm loving it too much. So I'm just setting these in the CSS panel. I've got a WebKit text stroke of 10 pixels of just black. But I have my block size of 200 pixels, which is a lot smaller than what the text is taking up. And I've got paint order stroke fill as well. If I take paint order stroke fill out, you'll see that it looks not very good, because the fill has happened before the stroke. And then we put it back. Oh, messed that up. And we put it back, and it just makes it absolutely beautiful. And I put a little rotation on it to make it a little bit jaunty. Sometimes I feel like I should read through the whole entire CSS specification to find gems like this, because there's so much. And there's also so much that we don't use in our day-to-day. And there's also so much that can really just like level up our designs a little bit. Like here's proving that the block size, let's change the block size to 400, and it's going to get bigger. And it still kind of nicely overlaps as well at 400. But if let's make it 100, and you'll see it change just to that. And you could probably even put a shadow on it as well. I just think it's a really nice, just a nice thing. I'm going to give you these links in the chat so you can read them yourself as well. There's paint order. There is block size. The block size doesn't seem to change the layout around it either. It really is just like the inner block size. And it's got all of these things. You can use keyword values on it. So if I used one of these like min content, fit content, it would actually fit it. But I am just describing it in plain CSS. So in plain pixels. So here, if I change my block size to min content, then it will fit around it, and it kind of goes quite nicely around it. Max content. I'm going to put this in the chat as well so that you can play around with it yourself. It takes the same values as width and height. You can do anything, and I just think it's really cool. And you have to use it with a writing mode. It doesn't work without the writing mode. It's dependent on that. And so if it's vertical here, it will respond accordingly vertically. It will calculate it correctly. This one as well, block size auto, but we can change that to 10 pixels. And then that one as well. So there's the different writing modes, which is another whole kettle of fish as well. But it doesn't work without the writing mode. So it's dependent on that. So how about that? That is something that I enjoyed this week that you can all enjoy as well. And now I want to see all of your fancy layered text headers, please, using paint order. And let's make that the new design system of 2025. I can see Andreas is chatting, but I'm going to get him on the. No, Andreas, you need to join the call. No, you are right there. I cannot use Discord. Still, after all this time, you can speak rather than type now.
Oh, hello. That's convenient.
Hello.
Oh, I was about to say, like, I don't know how long it takes to learn CSS, but it's significantly more than 20 years.
Yes.
No.
You know, my dad always told me, my dad was from India, and he did music and was learning music in school and stuff. And he said one of the main things that he got out of it is that when you're a sitar player, you never learn sitar. Like it takes your whole life to master it. And I feel like that's the same with CSS, really. And it's always changing, and there's always new stuff, and there's always new cool stuff. And I feel like there's never enough time to keep up with it.
One trick you can do is to build a sort of visual editor around it. That kind of really kickstarts it a lot, and you have to keep up constantly.
Yeah. Top tip: build your own visual website editor. maker. Have we got any questions from the community today? Remember to keep them toddle related. We have as people keep calling him the founding father of toddle here, ready to answer your questions. How do you feel about that? That's my question. How do you feel about that title bestowed upon you?
I mean, it's kind of true. I did start. I think I used to say I built Toddle. I don't think I can say that anymore, and I probably haven't been able to say that for a while. That would be inaccurate. That is very much a group of people building Toddle. And largely the success is based on how much of my code gets replaced. The better it gets.
I agree with that.
So.
We do have a question from Brian in the chat. I know Brian from way back. Brian has been talking to me and he's very excited about Toddle. So his question, if I have a variable that is an empty array and I have a repeating button that has data, how can I append the data to that array?
So basically variables in Toddle are relatively simple in the sense that you can really just get and set them. That's the only two. You can access the data inside a formula and you can use an action to set the variable. So if you want to append an item to a variable, to the array in a variable, you set the value of that variable to the new array that you want it to be. So demo. Yeah, I suppose I can do that.
Demo. That was going to be my next thing. Thank you, Casper. Because I'm having trouble visualizing the problem.
With some text stroke and
and some paint order fill stroke. Stroke fill. What's the one I used? I can't even remember. Stroke fill. Stroke first, fill later.
Yeah, fill later, right? So let's add a list of items here. Oh,
please zoom in, Andreas.
Whoops.
Many thanks.
How's that? I added just an array, a variable called items. Just an empty array. I'm going to repeat this over items. And then we'll add a button, right? And let's say every time I click the button, right, I want to update my variable. And there is no append action in Toddle, because all you ever do is replacing the value the variable points to. So we always just set the items and then we use the formula to do this. So I'm going to say, I'm going to take my items and here I can use append. And it's important to understand in Toddle, we have this differentiation between workflows and formulas. Like the formula here doesn't actually change the item. It returns a new array that has an item in. Let's do like items size, right? So we'll just add like a number every time, right? So this returns a new array, and then action up here sets the variable to be that new array, right? The formula itself doesn't change any variables. It just generates a value, and then the action here puts it inside. So now if I'm clicking plus, first of all, we should probably put in some color here, change the color, and then we'll change the list item here to just say item, right? So now every time I click the button, I'm going to add another item to my list, right? So the key here is always that we're not appending as an action, right? That's not the action we're doing. We're just overriding the value in the variable every time.
You see, traditionally, so Brian comes from the kind of same like community that I kind of frequented over the last few years, and it's all about a lot of it is based on very kind of presentational static websites, like kind of the old World Wide Web, like homepages and things like that. And then whenever we needed this kind of functionality, it was like native, like just vanilla JavaScript a lot of the time, like no frameworks, just like let's just do it with JavaScript. And so I'm finding the shift from, I know how to do it in code, I know how I've always done it in code, but like there is a mental model shift in Toddle, but it does make a lot of sense when you know why.
Yeah.
And it's just all about that shift. And because I keep forgetting how to code. I even forgot yesterday how to write an array, and because I've got so much other new information in my head. So, but I think it's worth it, Brian. I mean, I have to say that, I guess. No, but I agree. It's worth it.
You do. We're paying you to say that.
Yeah, I have to say it.
That
But it is worth
is
it.
under contract. Say it's
It is
definitely worth it. I think
It is worth it.
one important point to understand is that how you do it in toddle is also how you do it in code, because there are a lot of ways you can do it in code.
Yes.
One of the things, like, I love programming languages. I love them. Which a lot of people have found like weird, given that I'm building toddle, but I don't think there's a conflict there at all. I love trying new languages and seeing like some of them having a completely different idea of what programming is. So on one hand, you have languages like JavaScript that is like a very loose, like kind of, you could, whatever you feel like your way of programming, you can do that. You have something like Haskell, which is what's called a very functional and pure programming language. It has a completely different way you have to think about programming. Like, obviously some things translate, but a lot of things is just like, you can't do that. I was learning.
So I tell my Haskell story.
Do you have a Haskell story? Yes.
I have a Haskell story. So I met someone at a conference a couple of years ago, and he's a big Haskell programmer. And I was like, oh, I'm quite interested. Let's just have a look at some Haskell. We were hanging out in the hallway track, and I was like, okay, let's make a random number generator in Haskell. A random number generator in Haskell. And we spent 3 hours doing it, and we couldn't do it because JavaScript has math.random. Haskell doesn't have any concept of randomness. You couldn't do it.
No, there's no concept. No, why do you want randomness? What you want is order and security.
Yep.
No, so Haskell has this weird thing where when you create a function, which is like essentially the equivalent of a formula in toddle, right? It has to be what's called pure, which means if you call it with the same input, it always has to produce the same output and doesn't do anything else. And that's extremely limiting, which makes it very hard to program in Haskell sometimes, because sometimes you want to generate a random number.
Yeah.
But one of the benefits is that there's a lot of errors you can't make when you have those kind of restrictions. Like, it's simply not possible to create a bunch of the type of errors that we spend hours fixing in JavaScript. They're literally impossible to make in Haskell. So every language has a different idea of what programming is and what it should be. And again, Toddle does to some extent have that too, right? We have our own ideas of what is a good way of doing this, right? We stole almost all of our ideas, like most languages do. We stole all our ideas from somewhere. A lot of it is like, if you look at Vue or React, Toddle is very heavily inspired by those. So like the way you do what I said about the list in Toddle is the same way you would do it in Vue, same way you would do it in React, right? Like, obviously there's a difference because it's code and it's visual, but it's the steps are all the same.
We have a very good question. I will read out the question for those viewers watching and not listening and not looking at the chat. Big mental model question. Brian typically builds his data and then uses that data. I've been playing with an API that isn't great. What's the best mental model for normalizing data for use? Bad API to complete the data, use the data. Or posed maybe another way, is there an idea of server functions that can build up my data, or is it all happening in the front end? I'm going to answer a bit of that using my experience. So I am rebuilding my website in Toddle, and all of my content is still stored in Contentful. I'm not going to migrate it away, and I wanted to get some markdown to present on the page in Toddle. Now, first attempt was I tried to build a pure markdown parser in Toddle. It used like recursive kind of components that called each other to render it completely. But that was far too complicated to do in the formula editor at the time. So what I did was I made a little API that I could post some raw markdown to, that then converted that to JSON that was easily more it was able to be easily more parsed by the toddle components when it was just direct JSON rather than just a string of text. So in that, my answer for some of that would be basically the toddle is your presentation layer, and it's kind of following best practices of what we always talk about in like architecture and full stack architecture. Do as much computation as you can on the back end, and then the front end is a presentation layer, and the less you do on the front end, the less chance there are to be bugs and things like that. So basically bring your own back end, do as much as you can on the back end. But that's my kind of experience so far. Over to you, Andreas.
Well, I very much agree with you, but I will say there are different schools of thought, because I mean, Jacob went and built a markdown parser.
He did,
just in toddle with custom style overrides. And we had a long theoretical discussion over dinner while the whole team was in Copenhagen. And I kept arguing that it couldn't be done because I didn't think we had all the pieces we need. Or at least I mean, I knew it could technically be done. Like you could always do it, but I don't think it could be done easily. And I hadn't realized, of course, he'd already built one at the time, just to prove me wrong, ahead of a discussion. So, I mean, I agree. I think there are a lot of things it makes a lot more sense to do in the back end. I also think, like, while for almost everything I do, I would prefer using the formula editor and visual programming, there are tasks where I think code makes more sense. Like if I was writing a markdown parser, I would do it in JavaScript. But I would probably just install something someone else did. I'd probably ask an AI even if I didn't do that, because honestly, that they're kind of good at doing that kind of thing. But I mean, that for me wouldn't be something where I would choose the formula editor unless I'm trying to demo it. So I think it's all about finding the tools, like build a big toolbox, learn a lot of different things. Like obviously learning to code take a bit longer. I think if you're really getting into toddle, I think it's great. Learning a bit of JavaScript makes it even better. Learning more about the browser makes it so much better. So I think there's build a big toolbox and then see what tools you have to solve each problem, right? And it doesn't have to be the best tool for the job. Just find a good one.
I always like to, I'm working on this other blog post at the moment, and one big analogy, metaphor is about kitchen builders and how it's the context underlying it is AI and valuable work and things like that. But kitchen builders will not just use one hammer to build a whole kitchen. They will have a variety of tools in their toolbox to do different parts of the kitchen. Some things will require sanding, some things will require drilling, and it's the same thing for building for the web, isn't it?
It is. So we had a question from NoCodeProCode, which was, when can we run custom formulas, SSR and toddle? So one of the limitations we have to do today is that if you build a custom formula with JavaScript, we are not going to run it on the server while we're rendering your app. We will run it on the client afterwards. But so let's say that formula is responsible for hiding some element on the screen, or maybe it's calculating some value displaying. When you load the page, the first render, that it's not going to be there, because when it was rendered on the server, we don't apply that formula. And that's simply for security reason. We can't, on the server as we have it now, we can't run your custom JavaScript code because people could literally do bad stuff, right? We've been looking into updating our infrastructure to a way that allows you to do that, which essentially would require us to create a sandbox around every single branch. It's looking very promising, and just for good measure, it also seems to be a hell of a lot faster. For initial renders. So we're experimenting with that. We think it seems very likely that something we can get implemented soon, but it's still a little bit too early to be able to say anything with certainty, right?
Thank you so much. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for to get rid of my APIs and just do it all in toddle. Right, so we're coming up to close time now. I will let you know that actually there will be no office hours for 3 weeks, unfortunately. Me and Andreas are going to do something very, very top secret next week. then I'm speaking at a conference and all sorts of stuff. But we will return at the end of April with some more good stuff. And make sure, please, if you have a project that you want some help on or that you want to show, please submit the community showcase form, because I have no more people in the queue. So get in, first come, first served. If you apply, you will get featured. No pressure.
Ooh.
Yeah, even you, Andreas, show me
Even
something you're
me.
building in Toddle. Yeah, why not? Why not? All right, so any last words for this session of Office Hours, Andreas?
I don't think so. I think it was a good one. We got to see Jacob working at half speed. So
Yep,
yeah, that's always a joy.
brilliant. Always a joy. We'll see him next time again on half speed again. All right, take care, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Bye.
Bye.